Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me for today's pre-concert talk. I'm going rogue here. I'm starting a few minutes early, so we're just going to hang out for a bit, and then at the top of the hour, we'll get going with kind of the official talk. I realize, one of my favorite things when I give pre-concert talks, and this started all the way like, a decade ago with my first job with the Milwaukee Symphony, whereas as assistant conductor, I had to give all the pre-concert talks, and then I did the same thing in Pittsburgh. But it always felt funny to me that the traditional way is you'd walk on stage to give the pre-concert talk and everybody would like clap for you, and it always felt very official to me, and that annoyed me immensely. And so what I would start doing is I just hang out on stage like 10-15 minutes even before the talk, and just hang out with audience members and answer questions, and then it just kind of freely flowed into the pre-concert talk. And I miss that. I tell you, the as incredible as this season has been, and we are so grateful to be doing what we're doing. I think more and more now that the kind of the novelty and kind of the anxiety around producing each one of these concerts, as that becomes a little more normal, I guess, it's become more and more apparent just how much we need that. We need you guys back. We need our audience back. I feel like with each passing concert, we miss you all a lot more. So really, really looking forward to the time that we can be back in the hall together again. It's great. There's been so much good news recently. I don't know what that means for us in the short term or the long term. All I know is we're going to keep on doing our thing, and we're so lucky to be able to continue our season. But really looking forward to that time that we can be back together. Great to have you all with us. I know some people are hopping in chat. Feel free to jump in and chat. We are live again. I know last month, I think off doing another concert at the same time, so this part wasn't live. But I'm here live, so feel free to say hello in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. More than happy to answer anything that comes up. But great to have some people already here. David from Guerneville, great to have you here. And Jack's here. Julie from Santa Rosa, fantastic. Jack and Marcia, wonderful. Great to have you guys here. And Chris from Montgomery Village, fantastic. Well, great to have you guys all here with us. And I know people are still streaming in here. But, it's top of the hour, so why don't we go ahead and get started? The wonderful conversation today with our artistic partner, Ellen Tafes-Willick, and such an exciting, real performance for us. So, for everybody joining, welcome to this pre-concert talk for the Santa Rosa Symphony's streaming performance today. Great to have you all with us, and as always, a big thank you to Richard Grundy and Jamie Haswell, my good friends who are sponsoring these pre-concert talks. We are so happy to have you all here, and I have to say, this is a performance that I was looking forward to for a very long time, for a couple reasons. First of all, for this performance, we are having our very first guest artist of the season. And to be honest, I've loved what we've been able to do, put the spotlight on our musicians, no need to try to fly in soloists and deal with all of the travel concerns and all the safety issues around that. But Zool is a very good friend of mine, and it was one of those things where we had sort of chatted to see, we knew we wouldn't be able to do the original program that he was coming to Santa Rosa for, but this was like back in November, and I thought, well, let's have a chat, and maybe by March we could have a soloist with us, and there was something that we would be able to put on together. And so Zool and I kept in touch, and interestingly, the last kind of social hangout I had was last year in February, and it was with Zool. He was in Florida and had just finished giving the world premiere of Ellen's Cello Concerto. And we had sort of talked about it. We knew he was coming to do a different piece, but he was like, at some point we should really do this Cello Concerto. It's amazing. Well, fast forward, 8 months later, and I'm looking for things that I could do with Zool, and I was like, hey, look at, this cello concerto that Ellen wrote is not massive. Like, we can do it with 32 musicians on stage. Let's just switch to that piece. Like, let's give the West Coast premiere. Let's give the world premiere recording. Let's just go for it. And he was totally game for it. Ellen was really excited. And so that kind of gave birth to this program, which is just so wonderful to be able to have our first guest artist this season, and someone like Zool Bailey, just such a remarkable a cellist when it comes to anything from, like, you know, Bach to the contemporary works. He just has this just this joy and this energy that goes into everything, and the way he communicates. For any of you that have had a chance to see him in person, this is a really interesting opportunity, because you know how powerful his performance is no matter where you are in the hall. And it's interesting to see him, like, really up close with some of these shots you're going to see today during the Cello Concerto. You get even a closer sense for the kind of intensity that he brings to his performance. So it's crazy to think, you know, a year later, here we are doing the piece that we had joked about doing a year ago. But it's moments like this that make me feel like we're moving forward, that there is some momentum to returning to the performances that we want to have. You know, just even having someone from outside the Bay Area come and play with us for the first time seemed like a big step in that direction. And I think you're all going to really just fall in love with this new piece. It's been so much fun to work on it. You know me, I love doing new music. I love my commissions, and I've done a lot of them, but this might be one of my favorites, just as far as the level of fun in it, and just spontaneity is just incredible. And Ellen and I will talk about it quite a bit in our conversation together. So I think a lot to get to. I will be in the chat. I can answer some questions in chat, and then after my conversation with Ellen, I will be right back here, and maybe I can answer a few more questions before we head off for the actual performance. So thanks so much for joining me, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this pre-concert conversation that I had with our artistic partner, Ellen Tafe-Zwillich. So, Ellen, once again, so excited to take a journey through this whole program with you. You know, some American classics and this wonderful Brahms showpiece for our woodwind section. But I do want to spend a lot of time on the Cello Concerto in particular, just because, you know, this is going to be basically the first time a lot of people get to hear it. You know, it's had a performance with the South Florida Symphony, but this will be the West Coast premiere, but also, of course, the premiere recording, as far as people around the world being able to hear this work for the first time. So I want to have some time to really dig into that. So why don't we start there? Would actually just kind of love to know the background. Like, did you know Zool first? Like, did it start with wanting to write a piece for Zool, or you wanted to write a cello concerto? How did this all get started?
Well, I kind of have a love affair with the cello, and I've always thought I'd really, really like to write a concerto for it. And I had heard Zool playing a range of things, from things, you know, pretty current to things like Shlomo, you know, and he just seemed to me to have all of the things you'd really love to have in a performer. Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, actually. I'm sorry. But no, I was really delighted to have the opportunity. And it's been very nice, very, very nice.
Yeah. I mean, he's such a versatile performer. I know exactly what you're saying. I remember the first time I worked with him, and it was just, but also I love that, you know, he approaches all of the music with sort of the same kind of confidence and bravado and character.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, whether it's the Bach cello suites or like Tales of Hemingway, which he won the Grammy for, you know, whatever it is, he brings this same musicality to it all. And I just love it. There's it's just all music to him.
Well, my line is, play the music the way it wants to be played. Don't play it in a certain style that, you know, that you want to express, or a fashion or something. You want to find out how the music wants to get played. And that's the kind of thing he does really, really well.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, so when did you start writing on this piece? What was your timeline? Was this a really long-term project for you, or did
Yeah. I always allow more than enough time, because I was a performer, and I know the last thing you want to do is get to a first rehearsal and you're not ready to go. So I really, if I have a deadline in November, I push it back to September or something in my head, because you never know, you might get kind of slowed down or something. But I just always wanted to have enough time, and I'm very cautious about scheduling too much. And I spent a lot of time on this piece, and it was very, very, very much a pleasure.
Yeah. Has your process changed over the years? I mean, obviously now we do a lot of things, with computer. I'm just kind of curious, from your earlier works where, obviously, some of the stuff we did, like the Concerto Grosso, it's all handwritten. And I'm just kind of curious, has your process changed over time, from your earlier works to now? How does that work now?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. And yes, the Concerto Grosso was before I started a computer program. And I always hated hand copying. I mean, hated it. I didn't dislike it. And I have said I wouldn't go back unless somebody had a gun to my head. And then I think, well, I don't know. And when I started the computer program, they were out there before I got started, but I was really meticulous about the notation, and I had, there's a book it's about this thick that covers all the things you really need to know. And most of the computer programs at that point didn't have them, except the ones that were totally unfriendly to composers. And I finally started on a program that I felt comfortable with, and it's really, really good. But something that happened very early on, there's a playback, and the rhythm of the playback is like a click track, and the sound of the playback has almost nothing to do with the nature of the instruments that are represented. And when I first started doing this, I was thinking, why do I hate this playback? And I took an afternoon off and sat down and tried to figure it out. And the first thing was that it doesn't breathe. Whereas every good performance, the players are breathing, and literally breathing life into the music. It has no nuance. It has no weight of the sound that's comparable to the instruments. I had a funny experience a number of years ago when I was on a panel, student composer judging or something, and somebody had written a piece for 4 tubas, and it worked, I'm sure, in the MIDI playback. But I said to the people sitting there, I said, if we got 4 tubas in this room and they played this, we'd be on the floor laughing, because it was so against the very, very nature of the instrument. And musical instruments have weight and character and personality and inclinations to do this and not so much to do that, and so on. And all of that is not even available. You can do wonderful things with electronics now. You can really modify every sound and so on. But the thing that gets coughed back to you from your computer program is not musical.
Mm-hmm.
And I mainly use mine for proofreading, because it's hard to proofread yourself. And I've heard this from so many of my friends who are writers, that you know what you meant, and maybe there's a missing letter or something like that, and you can certainly hear a wrong note, when the playback. But I want to imagine the instruments that are playing it. And I think I got more and more in touch with these living elements, the dancing, the singing, the breathing, the nuanced this and that. I think I got a little more affected by that, because starting this computer program.
Interesting.
And, I mean, but in the course of my compositional life, I don't think I have, I've never wanted to be a part of a group. you know. And when I was you know, in school, when I was getting my doctorate, there was a lot of uptown, downtown, you know, you want to do things completely 12 tone or, you know, serialized, or you want to just sort of hang out and play one note for a half hour or something, you know. And I just always thought these discussions even were kind of silly, you know. And um, John Cage, for me, had the most wonderful description of this kind of dispute, you know, uptown and downtown in New York, uptown being like Columbia, Princeton, and downtown being like John Cage and, you know, all of that area. And John was involved in a panel discussion, and he said, I will only be discussed by my zip code. And I think that just put it all to rest, you know. Stop the stupid talk, you know. And you know, music is it's a human force, you know, and it involves all of us, you know, the brain, the heart, the soul, you know, the legs, you know. It's just everything in one place. It doesn't really lend itself to some kind of analysis that describes what it is doing, what it should be doing and should not be doing, and that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to kind of segue into talking about the music in this cello concerto, because I think you have such an organic way of bringing together, you know, maybe all the different kind of musical voices around you, whatever that they might be. And maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the things that inspired you as far as, you know, the sound of the cello in this piece, and maybe some of the other influences.
Well, yeah, and see, I think all good music is chamber music. And that includes orchestra with giant orchestras. It's everybody's got to be listening to each other and weighing in. And I enjoyed, you know, several things in this piece with, let's say, an English horn or a trumpet, you know, to bring them to the fore and have a little back and forth with the solo. So it's not like you have a solo and an accompaniment, you know. It's like you have a solo and you have a kind of a chamber accompaniment. And I don't know. I just really believe in chamber music. I think the world should run like chamber music, you know, where you listen to me, I listen to you, and we make something better than each of us could, you know.
Yeah.
And so just keep your ears out for other instruments and the back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what lends this piece in some ways well to what we're having to deal with, which is a slightly smaller ensemble than we normally would. But you know, this is the full version of your piece. You know, I know you did an even smaller version because of COVID that orchestras could do. But you know, this is the larger version. You know, with our 32 musicians that we can have on stage. And but of course, you know, when you're not without pointing fingers, you know, a lot of composers over orchestrate, of course. And what ends up happening is you lose the character and that chamber music quality that you're talking about. And, you know, even in a work like this that has so many different instruments in it, we really get a chance to appreciate each one because you allow that kind of transparency rather than just, you know, always kind of hitting us with blocks of sound.
Well, my feeling about orchestration, by the way, I don't like the word because it implies somebody's writing at the piano and then orchestrating. Orchestral writing really doesn't have to be so big. And when you think about the repertoire, it's kind of amazing how many works that are just considered classics, you know, even into the 19th century, are for not a huge ensemble. And it's bigger is not necessarily better.
I have to say that so often to young composers that I talk to. Yes, I mean, of course, and I was totally guilty of that when I was a composition student of just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I can relate and understand that desire, but it's you know, I think what's really special is and I think we can see that with all the great composers is, we talked about that last time with Wagner's Siegfried Idyll. It's
Yeah, yeah,
all the great composers could make the use could be very economical, and
yeah.
it's
And that's incredible. I mean, it's a fabulous piece. And as a small version, it's a fabulous piece. And I'm sure Cosima was so happy.
Yeah, indeed. Before we leave the cello concerto, I know, instantly when people hear this piece, there are going to be these popular elements that they're going to kind of pull on right away. And I know for you, it's all a really organic process, but I know you do have some background in jazz. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because it's very cool how it makes its way so beautifully into this piece, but it also is something that was a part of your background.
Oh yes, and when I was in college, I had two unbelievable experiences. They were kind of extracurricular because at that time jazz wasn't in the curriculum. But every Sunday, and I found out about this the first week I was in college at Florida State. Every Sunday they had a jam session, and one of the older people there said to me, bring your trumpet and come in on Sunday. We have an all-day jam session. And I did that repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. And it was an interesting kind of learning, because I remember one person said to me, "Have you heard this guy Clifford Brown?" And Clifford Brown had already died, but he was a fabulous trumpet player, a jazz player. And wow, I didn't know about him, and you learned a lot from the older, particularly older people around you. And like I said, I played bebop trumpet and I played, big band, and I loved that. And the other thing that happened almost at the same time, one of my older colleagues said, Ernst von Dochnany has a conducting class, and once a week they assemble a little orchestra for them to conduct, and bring your violin and come in on Tuesday or whatever. And I did, and that was the beginning of a really wonderful relationship I had with Dochnany. And he was a wonderful, really 19th century musician. Basically, he was a wonderful pianist, and he was a conductor, and he was a wonderful composer. But he was at that point in time, people were not going to come there to study composition with him, but they come to study conducting with him. And because he represented really an old school and so on, But he was a wonderful, wonderful, spirited man. And if he thought you had some talent, he'd take you under his wing. And so I really got so much from him in the last 3.5 years of his life. And interestingly, there were people that I would meet in that venue, so to speak, where they would kind of like raise their eyebrows about my jazz thing. And then there were people in the jazz group, who would kind of raise their eyebrows at my playing a Brahms string quartet or something, or even a Bartok string quartet. It's like, but I just wanted everything, I just wanted to take it all in, and I never thought this is going to help me do this or that. I just wanted it all, and I still feel that way.
Yeah. Well, and it's great that you draw on all these wonderful influences, and I think I wanted to have sort of a dangerous but broader conversation with you about what is American music, right? Because this program has a lot of different kinds of pieces. We've got Ives and Barber, and we've got Jesse Montgomery now, contemporary wise. And I don't think you can ever put your finger on it, because of course there's always going to be a piece that is an outlier. But I almost wonder if there is though this flexibility in a lot of, at least my favorite American music, where it has this openness to drawing on different material wherever it comes from. There's this way of just bringing it in, and it started right from the beginning with some of the composers we've done, like even someone like William Grant Still drawing on like African American spirituals. You've got Bernstein with Broadway,
Yeah.
Gershwin with jazz, and even now you got composers like Mason Bates with hip hop and DJs, and it's there's this openness to just drawing in a lot of different features of what American popular culture is about at the time. Um, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it's something
Oh
I've been
yeah,
thinking about.
I think it's an open door, period. And when you look back at certain eras, there were small numbers of people involved in music, and they kind of had a very, very similar experience. And you could sort of look back at the late Baroque era and come to certain conclusions about what they were doing. And although everything changes, when Bach was alive, his sons were much more popular as composers. And so many years later, he was like the glory of the Baroque era, and but not at the time of the Baroque era. And I think people make a mistake going for any rules, so to speak, of what But literally, music up until the late 19th century, music was much more local. And I always say today, you might hear Tibetan chant before you hear a Mozart symphony. And the door just ought to be wide open, and you go where you want to go, and follow your love for this or that. And I don't even think there is such a thing as 21st century American music. Why do we have to categorize it? Yeah. There are so many things that are done because of the way people study. Like you have a book that will tell you about this period and this country and this and that. I just think the door ought to be wide open. And even like when I was a young violinist, there was a discrepancy between Russian style of playing and French and German and so on. And I have always thought you play the music the way it wants to be played. If it's Russian music, maybe you have more of that style of Oistrakh or something. If it's, you know what I mean? In other words, these barriers, they're not things that enlighten you. These are barriers to thinking about what is and what can be and what shouldn't be and all of that. And,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Couldn't agree. I mean, couldn't agree more. Of course, your music is representative of that ability to just freely flow, which has been what's been so much fun this season, working on these 5 very different pieces.
Yeah, yeah.
Before I let you go, just let's talk a little bit about the counterpoint to all this great American music, which is Johannes Brahms with his Second Serenade. For me, when people ask, what is my favorite piece, it's whatever I'm working on at the moment.
Yeah.
I do have an answer.
Me too, exactly.
Oh yeah. But when people ask me what's my favorite piece to conduct, I don't have a piece, but I do have a composer, and that composer is Brahms, because it feels so good to conduct. It's nothing about it being better, but Brahms, when you're conducting it well, it feels right. And as a counterpoint, for instance, I tell people Beethoven, for instance, if you feel comfortable when you're conducting Beethoven, you're doing it wrong, because he doesn't want you to be comfortable.
Go home.
Yeah, but Brahms for me is just the inner voices that you hear on the podium and the warmth of the sound. So when I think of Brahms, I just think that incredible feeling when you're conducting it, and the breath and the warmth of the inner voices. Wondering if there's anything that kind of strikes you about of course, this music, which you know so well.
Oh, I love Brahms, and but I have to tell you, when people ask me what's my favorite composition, or do I have a list of my favorites, and I say, that's like saying my favorite child is Charlie, So I don't admit to favorites in my pieces, but I think the thing about Brahms again is that flowing, breathing human thing that's in the music. And I used to love to play the violin piano sonatas, and I had, as a matter of fact, a lovely experience with Doc Nani one day when I was working on the D major, and he and I are sitting outside school for some reason or other, and I said, you know, this is my favorite of the three sonatas, and I sort of told him why it was, and then he let me talk. He was a very, very nice man. I'm this little kid, you know, I was 17, 18-year-old maybe. And he said, I mean, let me finish. And then he said, well, he said, but there are three such different pieces. I don't have a favorite. And I thought that was really a wonderful lesson, you know, for me.
Yeah.
Really. And,
Well,
and sorry.
oh no, that's okay. That's okay. You know, it's man. I mean, we can. Every musician has so many great stories about Brahms, just because it's
Yes,
part of
yes.
our upbringing, and you learn so many important lessons, whether you're you know, a performer, a conductor, a composer. You know,
Yeah.
just being around his music, you're always learning something, because you know he was a composer that was you know, accused at the time of being conservative, and yet ended up being one of the most innovative composers
Yes,
we've
that's
ever
right.
had. And his ability to just bring in everybody, you know, you could basically claim him as your own, no matter what your perspective was. And I think that
That's
says
right.
something about how, you know, remarkable his music was. So I'm going to let you go. I also wanted to just say congratulations. One of your pieces was on a Grammy-winning recording this year, just recently. Do you want to tell our audience very quickly about
Yesterday.
that, and what the piece is and where they can go check it out?
Well, it's a quintet for alto sax and string quartet, and it's on the Cedille label. It's available a couple of other ways. It's the recordings uh, fairly recent, and Otis is a fabulous saxophonist, and it's the Pacifica Quartet, and it's just really. They just did a wonderful performance, and particularly his name's Otis Murphy, and he's got all the chops you need for the alto sax. And I had a really good time writing this piece, and I I think they did a very, very fine performance, and that's out there available in several different ways. And I was very glad for them that they got this recognition.
That's so wonderful. So there you go. There's your homework, everyone. Go check it out. And Ellen, is always so wonderful to spend some time with you, and just, you know, really excited to be working with Zool on this cello concerto. And I know everyone's just going to have an incredible afternoon of music with us.
I wish I could be there in person, but I will enjoy it from afar.
You'll certainly be there.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Ellen. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed having a chance to hear another wonderful conversation with Ellen. I always, it just inspires me so much getting to talk with her about all these things. And uh, especially, I just love that I realized that the more I talk to her, the more a composer and a conductor come from like different angles to certain things. And I love it. I've realized over the years how kind of analytical I've become in a certain sense, especially when I approach a piece for a first time. And in talking to her, you know, I'm always like needling her to try to get information. Like, what do you think about this piece? Like, what style are you going for in this piece? And then in her individual pieces, I'm always going after her. Like, you know, what did you mean by the line you put over this note? And like, how much of a breath do you want here? And how much time do you want between movements? And I'm like trying to like garner information, because of course, you know, I want my job to be presenting the best possible version of what she wants in her music. And Ellen's great. You hear a little bit in this conversation as well. She has such an open mind to things. You know, whatever detailed work that goes into the piece, she wants it to just live on with the musicians that perform it. And I love that give and take with her, because I'm always trying to get more information, and she's always being just vague enough that I actually have to kind of make my own decisions at the end of the day. So this is so great. I mean, you guys are here for really the kind of the one of the kind of key moments in our work with Ellen and being able to give the West Coast premiere of this work. So it's just been an incredible journey. And this performance in particular, it was probably the most exhausting weekend, probably for everyone. I can definitely say for myself that we've had this season, but I think musically one of our most fulfilling as well. So thanks everyone. I know we had a bunch of people in chat. It was great answering a few questions in chat. And I know Kirk left a great question for Ellen about compositions. And if any of you ever have any questions, we have 2 more of these amazing performances to do with Ellen, and more than happy to relay some questions and answer them during our conversations in the future. So you can reach me through social media or the symphony if you have anything that you want us to ask Ellen, because she is our artistic partner. She's here with us on this journey, and as you can see, she loves discussing anything related to music. Okay, so just like a normal pre-concert talk, I'm going long, but that's me for you. The basically next steps are our performances at 3:00, coming up in about a half an hour. You'll need to go back to the Santa Rosa Symphony YouTube channel. So it's not, this video is going to end eventually, and you would need to go back to the Santa Rosa Symphony YouTube channel, and there you'll be able to see the video that's set to premiere at 3:00, which will be our actual performance. And then even after all that, if you haven't heard me talk enough, you can come back after that performance, back to the Santa Rosa Symphony YouTube channel, and there'll be yet another video, which is our post-concert Q&A. You'll get to know 3 of our wonderful musicians in the orchestra and kind of hear about their thoughts from this performance and just get to know them a little bit better. So great afternoon ahead of us. So delighted that you're all here with us, both today and throughout the season, supporting the arts, keeping them in all of our lives, keeping our communities together in this way. We appreciate it so much. Every single opportunity, every single viewer, every single comment we get, we live for these moments because we don't get to see your smiling faces and we don't get to feel that energy in the hall together. So it is just wonderful still to know that we're connecting with people and bringing this kind of comfort, hope, and joy, all the great things that come with putting on a concert together. So with that said, go get something great to eat or drink and come back, and we'll see you for a great concert at 3 p.m. All right, everyone. See you there.